meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the acting town clerk please call roll?
Trustee Smith,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Here.
Trustee Wakeman,
Here.
Trustee Trailer,
Here.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Here.
Trustee Granquist,
Here.
Mayor Austin.
Here. Okay, does anybody have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
None that I
Town Attorney Matt Gould, do we want to add the letter discussion to the agenda?
That's totally up to you.
You want to add the letter discussion to the agenda? That came on your email today.
Yes, briefly, so that everybody knows what we're talking about. There is a letter that was marked by me as attorney-client privileged that I sent on June 10th. It has some commentary by me. Attached is an anonymous document that has been circulated. And the question is whether the letter should be handed over to the investigator. I don't have an objection, but I believe it's the board decision whether or not to let that letter go to the investigator. It might waive attorney-client privilege. Other privileges might still apply.
Thank you. Do you want to add it to the agenda for discussion?
Yes, I think we should add it.
I'll take a motion.
I move that we amend the agenda by adding the discussion and possible action on the attorney's letter to the board regarding attorney-client privilege.
Second.
Acting town clerk, please call roll.
Trustee Trailer,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
Trustee Granquist,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. And at this time, we're going to have Chief Garcia, oh, there you are. Chief Garcia come up to present an Outstanding Citizen Award for 4 young people in our community.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. On June 26, 2020 of this year, Milliken Police Officer Martin was parked in the 100 block of South area when she was approached by Ethan, Riley, Hayden, and McKenzie. They then handed over to Officer Martin a Ziploc bag containing $466.48.
Wow.
Ethan said they were playing over at the elementary school and they saw a blue backpack laying on the ground. They opened the backpack and found a Ziploc bag containing money and other items. At this point, they decided they should do the right thing and turn the money over to the police department. The money and other items were returned to the owner, including the money was accounted for. Ethan, Riley, Hayden, and McKenzie. On this night, you showed a great level of character and integrity by doing the right thing. Your police officers in your community are proud of you. Therefore, we wanted you to be publicly recognized in front of the elected leaders of your community, the town council. So without further ado, we'd like to present you with a certificate and some gift cards. Also, Susan Price, the manager of TBK Bank, also heard about your good deed and wanted to reward you also with a gift card. So thank you, TBK. So at this time, we're going to have Mayor Elizabeth Austin present you with the awards, and I got the certificates.
Okay. So we will start with Ethan Miller. Ethan, can you come up, please?
Should we stand?
We want to be able to take a picture too, okay? We want to present you with this certificate here and your award, and we want to thank you for being such a good citizen. Okay, next up, Hayden Mull. Hayden, nice to see you tonight. Thank you so much for coming in. On behalf of the mayor and the board of trustees, we want to thank you so much for your good citizenship. Can you come around here so we can get your picture? Here's your certificate. And chief has the goods. There you go. There you go. All right. Mackenzie Mull. Okay. Obviously, we have an injury tonight. Okay, there you go. How you feeling? Okay, good. You just bring over here so we can get your picture. Behalf of the mayor and the board of trustees, thank you so much for your good citizenship. All right, and last but certainly not least, Riley Mull, would you please come up? I see that you've got your skateboard pads on. Good job. Come on up here. Yes, that's a good thing. All right. On behalf of the mayor and the board of trustees, thank you so much for your good citizenship. Here is your certificate. And there is your gift card. So thank Susan Price with TVP Bank for participating in this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
These kids love our skateboard.
I'm excited.
It's so nice to hear good things.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of them certainly knows the Pledge of Allegiance. That was great.
See you, Sherry.
All righty.
That was really nice. Thank you.
All right, next up is citizens' comment. Do we have any citizens' comments? One citizen, so. And do we have anybody on Zoom? Okay, we'll skip over that. Meeting minutes. Are there any discussion or comments on the minutes of July 8th? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the minutes from July 8th.
Second.
Acting Town Clerk, please take a vote.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
trustee Grandquist,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Yes.
trustee Trailer,
Yes.
Mayor Austin,
Yes.
trustee Wakeman.
Yes.
Okay, acknowledgement of the paid list of bills. Does anybody have any questions on the paid list of bills?
I do. Could we have an explanation on the agreement with TRPR for the payment to them?
Are we speaking about the 200,000
Mhm.
annual payment?
Yes.
That was to help build the MAC facility, the Boys and Girls Club, as well as the town of Milliken, joined forces, if you will, with TRPR. And TRPR received a grant from the Department of Local Affairs, but they were still short funds on what they could come up with every year in their budget. So this is not for operating costs, this was for construction costs. And I couldn't tell you how long, I think it's 20 years. Yeah,
20 years and then we own the building
I
after 20 years?
believe at least a big portion of the building,
Yeah.
if not the whole building.
Do you concur with all of that?
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just here for backup.
Okay. Any other questions on
Thank
the
you.
paid list of bills?
I just want to comment and just say thank you for breaking up the months. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just as a note on this, you won't see any visa bills on this month's list of bills, just because of the timing of when that bill gets paid. What you will see next month, you'll see 2 months. We'll make sure we break that out very clearly, the two separate months worth of payments on that. Just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else? Okay, interim town administrator Pell, do you have a report for us?
I do. The department directors and water, wastewater, and parks and streets did provide me with one. I was not here last week, so they emailed me a lot of information. One item that occurred for water, wastewater is the blower for the treatment plant went out, and so they had to order a new one at a cost of about $17,000. It'll be in next week. And correct me when I'm wrong, Don. For the RO plant, the underdrain plates are due in by next week for the Frontier system. Frontier will be out making the repairs, finishing up the repairs. The system should be back online no later than the first week of August.
Okay.
And also Don would like to schedule a tour with the town board at the RO facility. He was thinking having the tour done before the plant's back online, just because it's noisy in there, and so better to hear what he has to tell you and to ask questions. But I'll leave that up to you and scheduling what times you're available.
Okay.
The streets department, for the week of July 23rd, there was concrete repairs at Town Hall and 281 and 261 Juneberry Street. The Bee Hill drainage ditch completion, so that should be, is it done?
We had another concrete fail yesterday that we had to replace today.
Okay.
Bee Hill temporarily pushed back. It's still, it's not holding water, it's just finishing some piping, so. But we got a concrete wall and some others that we have to do.
Okay.
But it's underway. Yeah. They're continuing alley grading and rebuilding in the alleys, which is really nice to see. The week of July 30th, County Road 46 rebuild and grading from Dove Valley out to County Road 19. So they're going to shape the road essentially, and then they'll use recycled asphalt to place on the road along with mag chloride to stabilize what they do.
We're actually gonna pull some of the powderized material off the top, haul it out, get back to a more firm base. At the, like she said, the millings that we pulled off of 46 will go on there. We'll grade it, roll it, compact it, and then we get mag chemicals scheduled for Thursday morning that will treat it, and it'll actually firm it up really nice. So it should hopefully, this gets by temporarily with a nice fix, so.
Kind of like what they did with County Road 21 in the past. So, and that seems to have held fairly well for the number of years ago that they did that.
Will we have to shut the road down for that?
Yes, we already have it finished.
We've noticed it on Facebook and our website.
And we're just shutting it down during the day while we're working on it. It will be usable off hours, yes.
Okay.
By machineries out there, it's just safer to shut it down for us.
Okay. I didn't notice the publication, but thank
Just
you.
went out this morning.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because I was waiting for confirmation that I could get my chemicals set up for
Mhm.
delivery, so I just got that late yesterday, so.
great job. Thank you.
Parks Department, for this past week, rock bed at the Ehrlich Playground has been cleaned up. Do you want to add any more detail to that, Keith? Was it a lot of weeds?
It was all overgrown with weeds and there was more dirt than rock in there, so we just emptied it out and put fresh rock in there, some of the old rock that looks a lot new.
And they've added new playground mulch to Lola Park, Mountain View Park, and Florence Park around underneath the playground equipment.
Is that the rubberized mulch that we have to comply with?
No. What we're hoping to get at some point in time is a port in place, but this is actual playground mulch. It's softer. We have to have, what, a 9-inch base?
Gotta have a 9-inch base under, it depends on how far the fall is on the depth. But we're trying to get it ready for it to get the parks inspected,
Mm-hmm.
so that way we're all compliant.
And this is through our insurance company, CIRSA's recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
So on the depth needed for mulch.
Thank you.
This next week, mulch will be added to FBC Park. East side of the police department will be cleaned up and mulch added. And I guess it's through some of the kids that Sylvia works with that will be spreading the mulch.
Help out.
Mhm. They're weed eating in the ditch in front of the wastewater treatment plant and then cutting some tree limbs that are hanging on the road on North Alice. So get that cleaned up. We received our scoring for loss control audit from CIRSA. And I compliment all staff for this. Town received a score of 102 points out of a possible 91 for our workers' comp audit. And
Wow.
that's because we had additional bonus points.
Oh, wow.
We received 101 points out of a possible 79 for our property and casualty. And again, because staff completed the bonus points area. They're not easy audits, and it takes all year to do these. So they've done a great job with training and webinars. So it's just really nice to see. So it was great news.
That's great news. Wow, that's,
And that's all I have.
Okay. Consent agenda, we have nothing. Our first action agenda item, we have to convene as the liquor licensing authority, and two of us need to recuse ourselves because we serve on the Milliken Events Committee.
I'm recusing myself as well for personal reasons.
Okay, there's still 4.
do we shut the door?
You shut the door? Or do we not need to shut the door? Can you hear me, Scott?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna open and convene as the Liquor License Authority on consideration and approval of the special events liquor license for Beef and Bean Day 2020. Agenda memo, purpose of this is the Milliken Events Committee is applying for the special events permit for the 2020 Beef and Bean Day event on August 8th, 2020. The beer garden will be managed and served by the Burnout Grill, who will provide tips, trained servers to be present during each shift of the rotation. This will be over at the TRPR area, and the beer garden has its own premises, which is you can only have beer and consume the beer within the premises. Is there any questions by the board members?
Yes. So how many are they gonna let in the beer garden at a time? Is that,
They will have to adhere to what the recommendations are by the state at that time.
okay,
We have not applied for a variance in Weld County, in the state. So what we're doing is we are making sure that we are still following the state's guidelines, the social distancing, the distancing between tables, much like a restaurant does. So that's however many tables they have, 6 feet apart is how many people they can have in there.
and I assume they're cleaning them after each person
They'll
leaves
have to do
and,
that. Instead of being glasses of or plastic cups of beer, it's going to be beer cans, and they're going to have plastic bottles of wine
oh,
as well.
I also have a concern about the cleaning in between customers.
Right, they'll need to do that. That's part of what the guidelines are, much like they do in a restaurant.
Okay.
Any other questions? I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the special events application for the purpose of a beer garden at the 2020 Beef and Bean Day on August 8th, 2020 at Thompson Rivers Park and Rec facility located at 320 Centennial Drive, Milliken.
Second?
I second.
Could we get a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Smith,
No.
trustee Trailer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Yes.
and trustee Wakeman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
You let him back in, chief? No survey.
What? What?
I said no survey.
Somehow I don't believe you. Okay. Moving to the information agenda, we have an update on the Milliken Water.
Oh, you got the addition now we have.
We have to reconvene as the town board first.
Oh, I thought you reconvened.
Okay. We will now reconvene as the town board. I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Okay. I thought the letter would go on 14E, or do you want to do the letter first? We'll put it on 14E. Okay, next up is the Milliken Waterworks Pool Site Plan Update. Pepper McClanahan, Community Development Director.
Mayor and trustees, per your instructions at your July meeting, we moved forward with a site plan. What I did was review the comments that we had received from the reviewers on the second submittal a number of months back prior to us taking a different track to look at transferring the pool. I sent those comments back out to the reviewers because I wanted to verify that they were still pertinent and that they were still timely. And when I got their responses and their changes back, I sent out those comments to the applicant. So they have been sent to the applicant. The applicant has acknowledged receipt, and we are now waiting for their response. So where I anticipate to go from there is that they'll respond, they'll send us back in a revised set of drawings if needed, and then at that time we can schedule it for public hearing before the planning commission.
How long does it generally take for them to make comment and return it to you?
There is no requirement in our process, so the timeline is theirs.
Oh, okay.
It'll depend on their design team, how quickly they can get with their client and decide what concessions they want to make based on staff's comments or which points they want to bring to the board for some type of concession from the town, and then how long it takes their engineer or drafts person to revise the plans if needed.
Thank you for the update. Thank you. Any questions, comments? No questions. Okay. Colony Point Open Space, Keith Staggs, Parks Director. Come join us.
Ready? Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, that section on Colony Point, I was just running, cutting it all down and grade it out and seed it. Right now, there's not a whole lot there. Probably use a non-selective herbicide and just kill everything. Whoa.
Not on Scott's face.
I can't hear you, Keith. Speak up.
Or is it
Speak
mic-
into the microphone.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I gotta yell.
It helps.
Um, Yeah, it might take two like fall and spring to take out all the weeds that are in there, the broadleaf and the aggressive weeds. I would do a soil amendment and grade the whole thing and seed it with a hydro seed. That way it's got a matting on top to keep the seed down and help with the germination. Earlier the better to do that kind of stuff. The seed I would use is a native shortgrass, prairie grass mix. It's mixed with a buffalo grass, a western wheat grass, and a blue Brahma grass. They're all relatively low growing, so nothing would get real tall. Some of it's a cooler grass, so it flourishes in the springs and in the fall, and the other stuff would flourish in the heat of the summer. About 6 acres right in there on both sides of the ditch up towards the railroad track easement. So about 625 yards of topsoil. And 100 pounds of seed.
All right, so let's give a little backstory on this piece of property, which is a problem. This happens to be my subdivision, so I have a bit of a conflict with this, but this was turned over by Lot Holdings to the town somewhere around 2015. It shows on the register with Weld County as being Town of Milliken in 2016. It was not prepared. It, over time, gathered construction crap that they have since cleaned up. And none of the houses at the time were built in the south part of Colony Point. Well, since then, they've built the houses. Now we have weeds. Now we're getting complaints from the citizens who have split rail fence that back up to this property. And our guys are out there. Some of it has to be done with a weed whacker because it's so uneven. Been back there many times. And it's really a waste of our manpower, so to speak, to maintain this area. And we have our ditch in there that feeds Lake Ehrlich. So as of tonight, Lot Holdings is turning over that HOA, thank you, to Colony Point. Lot Holdings will no longer manage the HOA on this. So now the problem is we didn't budget to do this. We did not budget any money to take care of this property in terms of product. And I think that it would be beneficial for us to approach either John Hall or Brett Hall and see if they can go to the Metro District and obtain some funds for the supplies to do this, so that then Keith could schedule it in with his work and do the manpower. Since we did not budget funds to do it. Now, the president of the HOA at Colony Point does serve on the Metro board. That's Russ Prust is his name. So he'll be one of the 4 people that can also speak to what the residents have in terms of problems along their back fences. I would say that since we did not plan to do any of this, we would not plan on landscaping the whole thing, just along the fence line of where the houses are in the new part of Colony Point. Does that make sense? There were a couple more pictures. Do we have those or do we only have one? Were there more? You can see Lake Ehrlich there. Okay, so this is more of what we're talking
Oh,
about right here.
okay.
These are the new houses. Now, if you slide over a bit more, there's our ditch. Whoa, okay. We're only talking about the west side of the ditch, I believe. That is the west side,
That
right?
was the west side of the ditch.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure if you wanted just the west side of the ditch or if you wanted to go all the way to the easement, the train track.
That's up to you. I'm not going to direct the work. It's up to you to figure out what you want. It's just something that I don't think that our guys should be out there with a weed whacker cutting this.
So what I understand from metro districts is there is a percentage, Wade, you might be able to help me with this because you're at that conference. There is a percentage that's supposed to go towards parks, right? Do you remember?
So it depends on how the district's set.
Okay.
Mhm.
So there may be an amount set aside for maintenance of parks and stuff like that, but that would be in the metro district. Parks in the metro district, not anything that they would possibly turn over to the town.
So they're turning over this land to the town, which would not make it in a metro district, or it's still a metro district.
No,
No,
the
it's not.
houses are in the metro district.
But that land is not.
No, that land belongs, that we're talking about
Oh.
belongs to the town of Milliken.
Okay.
Already.
And it's a conundrum.
And the approximate figures Keith came up with on that project is about $18,000.
At least 8,000.
Mhm.
So it's significant.
How much, Keith?
About 18,000. We could do a temporary irrigation for another 3,000 or 4,000. But that would only cover 80% of the property.
Do we really need to irrigate it?
No, not necessarily.
Well, if you don't irrigate it, it'll just be weeds again.
Yeah, it takes a couple of years for that buffalo grass to really kick in and drown out the weeds. But if you have a good wet spring, that would help get the germination going. And hopefully with killing off all the weeds beforehand, you give it a chance.
So it's 18,000 to do it, and then what's the maintaining? How much do you think it'd keep to maintain that yearly?
Maintain it yearly. It'd just be a guy with, probably have to mow it 3 times a year. Still, just to keep it in check.
I think I've seen you out there about every 3 weeks right now. Is that right?
Whenever the weeds get 1.5 feet tall, we start getting phone calls.
Yeah. There you go.
Huh. So was this part of our development agreement with
Pot holdings or?
yeah, whoever? Or how are we ending up with the property, I guess, is, and why is it not part of the metro district?
Because the town administrator at the time signed for it. And what's really odd, if you really want to discuss what's odd, is across the drainage ditch close to Settlers Village is some strange triangle piece of property that belongs to the HOA. I don't know how people from the HOA are going to get across the drainage ditch to go visit that property. It's the oddest thing I've ever seen.
The triangle, there's the triangle.
On the north side or the south?
The ditch that
Okay.
feeds Ehrlich, it runs north-south.
Is this the triangle or?
The
Yeah,
triangle down right on Inez.
yeah, it's
So-
off
East
of
of the ditch.
Yeah, so, okay.
On the east side,
Yeah.
just west of the tracks.
Little road
Yeah,
that we drive in.
this little spot here.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things we just can't explain.
So
It's much like the one we did with Centennial Farms, the open space that runs along by South Park, if you will. That's what we call South Park. It's between Alice Avenue and Irene on the south side of Centennial Farms. It's just open space
Yeah.
that all we do is mow it and get complaints on it. So it's kind of the same situation. Only this is less sightly, at least at Centennial Farms, they did put down native grasses.
Yeah, most of that took off and it looks pretty good. There are some patches of weeds in there, but for the most part, that did turn out pretty
But this is just all weeds.
good. And that was all irrigated too. That was
Correct.
So when the property was turned over to the town, was there something that was not completed at that time? Was it supposed to be landscaped and it did not get landscaped?
We'd have to look at Maria Pepper, probably their development agreement.
Mayor and trustees, I'm trying to download some stuff off of Weld County Map Portal. I suspect, and I'd have to double check, but this outlot, it was labeled as an outlot on the plat. And typically the plats identify what each outlot is to serve, whether it's to be parkland or open space, and which entity is responsible for that. And I don't have all the facts in front of me, but I suspect, and I think I remember that this was given to the town as open space as part of the plat 20 plus years ago. So there wouldn't be anything in a development agreement regarding either the HOA or the Metro's district's responsibility to do anything with that. If that's in fact the case, I can report back to you by email or at your next meeting if you'd like more clarification.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
I wonder what the whole idea is.
But I really don't think we should be buying materials to, solicit some help from the Metro districts. We didn't put it in our budget.
Yeah.
Larry, you still got
I have no questions.
Do you have a week?
Yes, but I believe we need the information from
Yeah.
Okay.
Pepper before we can
Thank you.
move forward with that.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay. Next discussion is waste management hydraulic leak update. Matt Gould, Town Attorney.
Yes, as I think the board is aware, there was a waste management truck on May 4th that apparently drove across several streets within the town, spilling hydraulic fluid. I believe that the initial cleanup was done. However, as part of trying to assess the impacts of that event, we learned that warranties on some roads that had been freshly chip sealed last year were essentially voided. So we had contact, and the town administrator reached out to Waste Management's representative in early June, but communication more or less went silent at that point. So our office made some calls to CIRSA to see if they could help, and it turned out they really couldn't. There wasn't much that they could do. Another email or two trying to press the point went without any response. So we sent a letter, my firm sent a letter to Waste Management after reviewing the contract that demanded indemnification under the terms of the contract. And there is a pretty strong indemnification provision. That got Waste Management's attention. And at one point, they had a representative from Gallagher Bassett, which I believe is a claims services company that was representing Waste Management. That individual indicated to me that he was no longer working on this, but we had a new representative from Gallagher Bassett call us in response to the letter, and she has essentially indicated, Scott can comment, that she will work with us, that she basically said, where do we send the check? And so they are trying to make this right. What we're requesting immediately is a test of a small area The goal is to apply
Basically, just new top coating to it.
a new top.
Seal it back off, to
Eh.
hopefully bring back our warranty.
Right. The goal is to rehabilitate the road and basically restore the warranty. We've indicated we'd like them to deal directly with A1 Chip Seal in paying for that test, and they have indicated they're willing to do that. So progress is being made. When is the test done?
We're still trying to set up the meeting. They've assigned an adjuster here in Colorado to meet with me and John Parks, the A1 Chip Seal representative. And with that, we'll put a plan together for the test date and how long we have to let the test set. And then from there, at the same time, we're going to try to verify the areas that we all feel needs to be recouped in that. It won't be all of it that we've done in the last year, but there's a wide area. With that, the three of us will come together with a plan, basically, of what we feel is an acceptable stopping point for the repairs, I guess. Our concerns are the big puddling. It's not the trails. They're not going to affect anything. They're cleaned up. They're stabilized. It's just wherever they picked up a can and made a big puddle, it actually softened that material up. So basically, in terms of our warranty voided but not voided, our warranty voided in every one of them puddles, but then on the rest of the road is good. So how do you justify, over time if something does happen, was it that or was it that? But what we're trying to do is just put that warranty back into effect on the full area.
And we did, during the course of communication recently, we did make contact with an attorney as well as Gallagher Bassett, and they do seem to be attentive at this point. So progress is being made.
Okay. Any questions, concerns, or comments? Okay, last item is discussion on the attorney-client privilege letter from that. Oh, wait a minute.
No.
Wait a minute. Update from Community Development Director. Sorry.
Sorry, Mayor and trustees, I did actually find the information. And the mayor is correct. Outlot C, which is this one, and D, were dedicated for common open space and drainage easements to be dedicated to the town and maintained by the homeowners association until other arrangements can be made with the town of Milliken. That was the note on the subdivision plat that was recorded. So at some point, you are correct. At some point, the town apparently took over maintenance of that. And it was dedicated to the town on the plat. So future subdivision plats that we consider, we should make careful review of notes like that to make sure that we have clear direction on who's doing what. One quick thing I wanted to let you know, I did get an email from the state demographer's office with draft population estimates as of 7/1 of 2019. They estimate that Milliken is now at 8,131 population, which is about a 45% increase since 2010. So I thought you might find that interesting.
Thank you.
Or some of us don't.
How many do we need? Let's get a grocery store.
10,000.
10,000.
There you go.
10,000 rooftops, not population.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
how many rooftops do we have?
I'll have to take a look. I don't,
I think we're a little over, how many water bills do we send out, Wade?
About 2,600, 2,650.
Oh, geez.
yeah, we're with.
We'll never get it.
Okay.
I have a question for Pepper.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pepper, when was that, the date on that development? Is there a significance in the timing or?
Oh, the subdivision plat for
Yes,
Colony
I'm
Point?
sorry, yeah.
I just closed it out. I think it was either 99 or it's somewhere between 1999 and 2001. Colony Point was a little earlier than Settlers, is that right? But it's been almost 20 years or around 20 years that it was platted and recorded that way.
And one was 2001 and one was 2000. I can't remember which.
Okay.
So-
I think probably 01 and Settlers was 02.
So what was the statement again? That it was originally slated to be under the care of the HOA, but owned by the town? Is that how it was?
Right, it was dedicated as open space, you know, for the town of Milliken, but maintained by the HOA until such time as an arrangement could be made with the town of Milliken. So it was always dedicated to the town, but the maintenance was supposed to be by the HOA until they made other arrangements with the town. So that's unusual language. You don't usually see that on a plat.
So-
I can check the development agreement to see if there's anything in the development agreement that addresses that.
It would seem to me that it would be the responsibility then of the HOA unless they can manifest something that transfers the responsibility to the town, right?
I don't see how an HOA is going to manage our property.
Yeah.
Well, but they did.
No,
Yeah,
they,
that's,
They said it was.
Centennial Farms is the same thing. So in the development standards that the town of Milliken had back then, they required the developer to provide so much land for open space to the town and dedicate it to the town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Open space or parks.
you have to remember when they're referring to the maintenance by the HOA, up until today, it was lot holdings. It is no longer lot holdings. As of today, it's Colony Point. So you have a change in the HOA.
Same thing at Centennial Farms. When it
Yeah.
reached over 60% ownership, the HOA went away of the original developers or
Then it
original lot
becomes
owners.
that.
And the HOA took over and maintained all that.
Seems to me though that there should have been room for some discussion or some type of negotiation talk with the town that, okay, we've reached this point, we're ready to convey maintenance to you, that we should have had some input. I would like to know if it was in the development agreement or I think it needs further investigation so that we would know if it just happens and we don't even
I
have
think it
any
all
input.
changed because in Johnstown, we did the same thing. When the subdivisions we did over there, Johnstown was requiring open space from the developer, a certain percent of the acreage of the total subdivision. Milliken followed suit behind Johnstown and adopted the same standards. So the developers over here had to provide the same amount.
I see.
And I think it was 10% of the total acreage had to be dedicated to the town for open space easements or whatever, trails.
Do you
Now,
recall?
since then, all of the standards have changed.
Mhm.
We still require a certain percentage of a subdivision to be dedicated for open space and parks. And in the PUD district, it's even higher than the normal requirement. It's usually, don't quote me on what the regular one is, but for PUDs, they're required to provide 25% of the gross land area to parks or open space, unless they're within a certain distance of a community park or other amenity like that.
Maybe it's
So we
something we need to
still
look
have
at
that.
changing, huh?
Pardon me?
Is that something we need to look at changing?
Yes.
Or,
It's something that we've actually flagged that went out to the advisory group tonight. That's a question in the PUD district. Do we want to keep it at 25%? We need to review all of those items. Yes. It's a good question. If Settlers Village is close enough to the open space and parks that are located Sunfield is located linearly close enough to the amenities in Settlers Village that they didn't require a public park, but you still have to cross 46. So the language as it's written during the review appeared to satisfy that requirement through the existing amenities in Settlers. So we might want to take a look at whether we want to amend that distance.
well, the open space here just doesn't appear very useful.
There is a There is language in our code, whether it was followed or not, and when it came into the code was probably the last time the land use code was overhauled, which was in 2003, that says that open space, that remnants don't count for open space. So in other words, little borders, around the section or quarter section that are leftovers that don't fit nicely into lots, that doesn't qualify as open space. But historically, from what I've observed with our plats, we've accepted that in the past.
And it just shows you how times have changed. Back in 99, 2000, 2001, the towns wanted those properties for open spaces. We didn't know that 20 years later, we're gonna have water problems there. We can't maintain those and operate them. So
Yeah.
I think it's been a turnover in what people want, what the town wants. And I guess we need to look at, what do we implement? What we want.
Yeah.
At the very least, I would say that we need to look at the development agreement and see if it was in, if we had any regulation on the condition of how it was turned over to us, or timing, or anything like that.
We can
Would
do
like
that.
a review on that.
Pardon me for interrupting, Peggy. We can certainly do that. And I believe that this issue had come up before and some research was done. And I don't know if there was ever anything in writing found when the town formally said, okay, we'll take maintenance. There may have been, there may not have been, but I'll check the development agreement and get back to you.
Okay. So are you saying then that we said formally that we would take over maintenance on this? Because that's what I thought I just heard you say.
We were researching to see if we could find where we formally did. I don't know that we did establish that.
Okay.
Yeah, we just took possession of the property and Keith has been maintaining it. Cutting weeds. I don't think is a good use of our time.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Well, at the very least, we need to say what condition we'll accept it in the future.
in the future,
Straight
I
out.
agree with you.
Yeah.
It's one of those things we need to watch for. I don't know why it was accepted.
Originally, everybody wanted parks.
That's the part.
I mean, I was involved in
Yeah.
development back
Sure.
then in
Yeah.
Johnstown and Milliken,
Yeah.
and everybody wanted park space.
Mhm.
That's the reason that both towns were requiring
Mm-hmm.
outlots and dedication of land so they could have parks in every community and subdivision. So it's just not feasible to be doing that today with water conditions and things we got going on. So
Mhm.
Yeah,
we have an opportunity to change that.
Yes.
absolutely. Okay, any other discussion?
Thanks, Leron, for that clarification. And thanks, Pepper.
And any other community development reports? We're good. Okay. All right, now we've got the discussion on the attorney-client privilege letter from Matt Gould. So,
Yes. So the issue is that a letter was sent to the board only on June 10th. It contained a commentary from me and two attachments, one of which has already been provided to the investigator. And I was asked for that letter, and since it's attorney-client privileged, it's really the board's call whether to release that letter. I did some brief research, and I think there is a chance that releasing it to the investigator could lift the attorney-client privilege, but possibly not. There are some circumstances in which third-party consultants, the attorney-client privilege is extended to them, but there are also other privileges that may attach to that letter. So I don't think there's anything in that letter that's problematic to release to the investigators, but it's not my call. It's up to the board to decide whether to instruct me to deliver that to the investigator. And if so instructed, I certainly will.
that whole thing is not germane to my part of the investigation, so.
I want it.
doesn't pertain to my complaint that we're investigating.
I'm fine with it being turned over.
I am too.
I have no issue with it.
I'd like to have a vote.
Yeah.
Just for a formal record.
So any other discussion?
So if you were advising us as our attorney, can you do that?
Sure.
What would your opinion be then is it beneficial to the investigation and not detrimental to the town?
So my view of the investigation is that it's a factual investigation. I don't see the letter that I wrote or my comments as particularly germane. I'm not excited about getting into any kind of routine where we lift a claimed attorney-client privilege over something. And so I think I would I would lean very slightly towards not releasing that letter. But again, I don't see that any harm is done to anybody.
I would say to that although I don't have a particular objection to releasing it, I don't see it as being beneficial in any way, whether germane or not. That's the investigation is not. I think it could even cloud the investigation by giving another point of focus rather than focusing on the issues that we've all brought forth for the investigation. I think those are the things that are being investigated. We're not investigating the letter. The letter's anonymous. There's no backing to it. If at most it brought awareness, but it's not the investigation. It's not even an element of the investigation. So I personally would say that releasing the letter would gain no benefit and might even be more damaging on the precedent.
So I just want to be very clear that when I talk about the letter, I'm talking about my own letter.
Right.
So there was an attachment, which I've referred to as an anonymous document. That's already been shared with the investigators because
Okay.
that's a lot of people have
Okay.
that. I don't view that as attorney-client privileged.
So then I was confused on which letter.
I get it.
So maybe somebody else is confused. Maybe I'm the only one. But in that case, I think it's even more important that we not disclose. If we were referring to the 4-page letter, then that to me is immaterial. The other stuff is attorney-client privilege unless it's necessary. I guess now I'm going to have to go back and review which letter it is that you're referring to.
Oh, you got it right here.
It's right here, that everything was attached to. So just these 2 pages, and then that was attached, and emails. So it's just the letter we got when we received, well, for me, when I received for the
Basically, it was
first
his
time.
legal opinion to the court.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Question is, do you want to release his legal opinion to the investigator, or do we want to keep it as attorney-client privilege between the board and Mr. Gould?
That's right.
I think I would make a motion that we not release it and we keep attorney-client privilege.
I second it.
acting town clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Grandquist? Are we voting, sorry, are we voting no?
A yes would be a vote to not release the letter.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes, I had to think for a second there.
Trustee Smith,
No.
Trustee Trailer,
No,
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Yes.
Mayor Austin,
Yes.
Trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So understanding that instruction, I will not release that letter.
Correct.
Correct.
All righty. That concludes our business. Do we have any comments from the board in closing? Any open discussion items left? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're concluded. Thank you, everyone.